The most powerful military in human history spent 10 years trying to destroy a network of tunnels dug by hand. They failed, not because of technology, not because of tactics, not because of firepower. They failed because the people who built those tunnels understood something that 200,000 American soldiers never could. They were fighting on ground that had already beaten one superpower before America ever arrived. This is the story of the Cu Chi tunnels, and it is not the story you think you know. 1965, Binh Duong Province, South Vietnam, 40 kilometers northwest of Saigon. The American military was the most technologically advanced fighting force ever assembled. B-52 bombers that could level a square mile in a single pass, helicopter gunships, napalm, Agent Orange, artillery that could fire shells the size of small cars from 15 miles away. Against all of this, the Viet Cong had rifles, bicycles, and shovels, and they were winning. The American commanders could not understand it. They would bomb a region into silence and move their soldiers in. The villages would appear empty, the jungle would appear clear, and then at night, the attacks would start again. Ambushes from nowhere, bombs on roads that had been checked that morning, soldiers disappearing without a trace. The ground itself seemed to be fighting back. It was. The tunnels of Cu Chi did not begin with the Americans. They began with the French. In the 1940s, when France was trying to hold on to its Vietnamese colony after World War II, the Viet Minh resistance fighters in the Cu Chi region began digging. Simple tunnels at first, places to hide weapons, places to move between villages without being seen on open roads. By 1954, when the French were defeated at Dien Bien Phu and left Vietnam entirely, the tunnel network in Cu Chi already stretched for dozens of kilometers. Then came the Americans, and the tunnels grew. By the mid-1960s, the Cu Chi tunnel system had become something no military planner had ever imagined or prepared for. 250 kilometers of tunnels, dug entirely by hand with simple tools, carved through the red clay of the Vietnamese jungle floor at depths of up to 10 meters below the surface. Inside those tunnels was a complete underground civilization. Field hospitals with operating rooms where surgeons performed procedures by candlelight. Kitchens with ventilation systems designed to spread cooking smoke across wide areas so it could not be traced to a single point. Weapons factories producing booby traps and ammunition from recycled American artillery shells. Command centers where North Vietnamese officers planned operations. Sleeping quarters. A theater where performances were staged for fighters between battles. The tunnels had 3 levels. The first level was closest to the surface and used for daily movement. The second level held fighting positions and weapons storage. The third level, the deepest, housed the most important command facilities and the shelters used during the heaviest bombing. Each level had water trapdoors. If American soldiers pumped gas or water into a tunnel entrance, the traps sealed the lower levels completely. The entrances themselves were works of genius. A trapdoor the size of a dinner plate, covered in leaves and dirt, was invisible from 30 centimeters away. Most American soldiers walked over tunnel entrances dozens of times without ever knowing they were there. The Americans tried everything. In 1966, the United States military launched Operation Cedar Falls. 30,000 troops, the largest American ground operation of the war to that point. The entire Iron Triangle region, including Cu Chi, was declared a free-fire zone. Everything living was to be removed or destroyed. Villages were evacuated at gunpoint and demolished. Bulldozers cleared thousands of acres of jungle. B-52 strikes saturated the region with bombs. Chemical defoliants stripped the trees bare, so nothing could hide beneath them. At the end of Operation Cedar Falls, the American commanders declared the Iron Triangle destroyed. Within weeks, the Viet Cong were back. The tunnels had survived everything. The bombs created craters, but could not collapse tunnels built with angled turns every few meters to absorb blast waves. The defoliants stripped the surface but could not reach 10 meters underground. The bulldozers cleared the jungle above, but could not find entrances hidden in tree roots and termite mounds. 30,000 soldiers and 2 weeks of the most intensive military operation of the war. And the tunnels gave nothing back. The Americans understood they had to go underground themselves. They created a unit that became known as the Tunnel Rats. These were volunteers, exclusively volunteers, because what they were being asked to do was something most soldiers flatly refused. Armed with only a pistol, a knife, and a flashlight. No radio, because radios did not work underground. No backup that could reach them in time if something went wrong. The tunnels averaged 50 centimeters wide and 80 centimeters tall. An average-sized American soldier could barely fit. They moved through complete darkness on their hands and knees, feeling the tunnel walls with their fingers, listening for the sound of breathing in the blackness ahead. The Viet Cong had designed the tunnels with traps for soldiers who entered, pits lined with sharpened bamboo stakes, boxes containing venomous snakes positioned at face height in the dark, tripwires connected to grenades, sections of tunnel that ended in a chamber with a fighter waiting silently in total darkness. The Tunnel Rats lost men, but they also gathered intelligence that nothing else could. They found maps, documents, and weapons caches that changed the American understanding of how the Viet Cong operated. There were never more than a few hundred Tunnel Rats at any one time. In a war of 500,000 American troops, they were a small group doing something nobody else would do. They went into the dark anyway. Here is what the American military never fully accepted. The Cu Chi tunnels were not just a military tactic. They were the physical expression of a strategy that went back generations. The Vietnamese had been fighting foreign occupiers for 1,000 years. The Chinese, the Mongols, the French. Every occupier brought superior technology and numbers. Every occupier eventually left. The strategy was never to defeat the occupier in open battle. It was to make the cost of staying too high to bear. To survive when survival itself was a form of victory. The tunnels made survival possible. 3 million people lived in the Cu Chi region during the war. Many of them spent years living underground. Children were born in the tunnels. People died in them. Entire communities existed below the ground, while the surface above was bombed and burned repeatedly. The Viet Cong fighter in the tunnels was not fighting to win a single battle. She or he was fighting to still be there when the Americans finally asked themselves the question that every occupying army eventually asks: is this worth it? In 1973, the United States signed the Paris Peace Accords and withdrew from Vietnam. In 1975, Saigon fell to the North Vietnamese Army. The war was over. The Cu Chi tunnels had outlasted everything: the bombs, the gas, the Tunnel Rats, Operation Cedar Falls, 10 years of the most intensive aerial bombardment in the history of warfare. Today, the Cu Chi tunnels are a tourist destination. Visitors from around the world pay to crawl through a section of tunnel that has been widened slightly to accommodate Western body sizes. They fire AK-47 rifles at a shooting range built on the former battlefield. They eat cassava root, the same food that sustained tunnel fighters through years of bombing. The tunnels that defeated a superpower are now an attraction. 250 kilometers of them still exist beneath the red clay of Binh Duong province. Most of them have never been fully mapped. The ground that beat the French and then beat the Americans still holds its secrets. And somewhere down there, 10 meters below the surface, in the darkness where no bomb ever reached, those secrets have been waiting for 50 years.
If you made it this far, you're exactly who this channel is for. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.